So I am walking out of a home inspection with the client buying a house, and I wanted to talk very briefly about the inspection process. Now, so many buyers have misconceptions when it comes to the home inspection in the home buying process. Let's get some clarity on this coming up. Welcome, I'm your host, Steve Penate, realtor and host of the Steve Talks Real Estate Show, where we bring you value, content, and tips in all things real estate and housing related. So I'm standing outside this beautiful summer, actually it's spring still, late spring, early summer day here. And we just wrapped up a inspection on a house with some clients that are buying the house right behind me. And so I wanted to bring some clarity to the inspection process during the home buying process. And so many buyers have misconceptions when it comes to what exactly is the inspection for. So let's get into that right now. Okay, so as a buyer, you're under contract and now it's time to do the inspection on the house. Now, according to what state you're in and so on, such as your inspection period, other states have different names for it. For example, in Texas, it's your option period, the time frame when you're able to do an inspection on the house you're buying. Now, so many buyers have the misconception that everything you ask for from the inspection report has to be done by the seller selling you the house. Now, that's a big misconception, and that's not the reality. Okay, the sellers are not obligated to do any repairs to the house you are buying. Nonetheless, that's when negotiations come into play. So you as the buyer and the seller, you go back and forth to try and negotiate the best outcome where both parties are truly satisfied. Now, let me paint you a picture here, okay? So you as a buyer, you want to get into a house where you probably don't want to do all of the repairs that are found on the inspection reports. Now, the seller is trying to save money and not wanting to put out all this money to fix some items you're asking to be repaired. On the seller side as well, the seller doesn't necessarily want to scare you off as a buyer either and having to put the house back on the market. So the thought process of the seller could be various mindsets, okay? The first one is this, okay. Attempting to make sure that the contract stays in place so that you as the buyer don't run off. And so the seller might say, hey, don't worry, the repairs you're asking for are reasonable. I will do all the repairs, both parties are happy. The seller could also be thinking, well, you know, they're asking for a lot of repairs. How about I do some, but I don't want to do all the repairs. And then the seller can also be thinking, well, I'm not gonna do any repairs because we had multiple offers, and if you're not happy as a buyer, well, guess what? Right behind you is another buyer waiting to buy the house. A lot comes into play when it comes to the seller's response to you as a buyer when it comes to the items you're asking to be repaired from the inspection report, okay? Some things that play into factor here is, you know, what market we're in. If you're the only buyer that wrote an offer on the house you're buying, well, the seller is probably thinking, I don't want to scare this buyer away. It's the only buyer I had when my house was on the market for a whole month. Now, if you were a buyer that competed to get the house, it was multiple offers, and the seller had to pick an offer out of many offers, well, the seller is probably thinking, well, you know what? I have the upper hand. I don't necessarily have to fix everything this buyer is asking for. Now, if they want to run off as a buyer, well, guess what? I got other buyers waiting to buy this house. On the other end, ultimately, the inspection is so that you, the buyer, you are very much aware of what you are getting yourself into, what condition the house is in, so that you can make a decision based off of that. Do I want to proceed forward and purchase this house knowing that it could be possible the seller doesn't do any of the repairs and I assume that responsibility and buy the house? Or you could be a buyer that's thinking, you know what? this house has way too many things. I don't even care if the seller repairs them or not. I'm out. So the inspection report is really for you, the buyer, okay? Don't rely or don't believe that the seller is gonna do all of the repairs. Once again, the repairs during the inspection period are completely negotiable. The seller is not obligated to do the repairs. Nonetheless, then it's up to you, the buyer, whether or not you want to proceed with the contract and buy the house. Therefore, the inspection report is for you, the buyer, so that you know what you're getting yourself into. One final note on this: make sure your real estate agent is fighting for you when it comes to the inspection process. Now, yes, ultimately, it's gonna come down to the response the seller gives. Nonetheless, though, there are some creative ways to negotiate some repairs to be done that are really important to you. Do not let your real estate agent off the hook so easily if you feel they haven't been negotiating on your behalf. Make sure your real estate agent is qualified and experienced when it comes to the inspection process. Well, that wraps up episode 119 of the Steve Talks Real Estate Show. Hey, I hope this information brought some clarity to you when it comes to the inspection process. It's getting hot out here. I'm starting to sweat my butt off. I gotta get out of here. Keep sending in your questions and I will do my best to keep on answering them. We'll see you next time.